Hey, good day, fellow deal makers. Welcome to the Deal Scout. On today's show, we're going to have a returning champion. This is his first time on this show, but this guy and I have spent multiple times together, and he's a knight. He raises capital, he teaches other people to do it. And so, if you are in the world of syndication, multifamily, commercial real estate, raising money, you want to pay attention to the show. Sir Brad, welcome to the show, man.
I love it, Sir Brad. It's great to see you again, Josh, man. Great to be here.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, you and I are hanging out in a coffee shop, or and we're just chatting along, and a friend comes up, and they go, "Hey, Brad, who are you? What do you do? How do you typically respond?"
Well, that's a long answer. I could probably go for an hour on that, but bottom line, my background really is former CEO of a small oil company that I built in my early mid 20s. We built that up to a pretty sizable organization with about 35 people on our payroll, literally raising millions of dollars each and every month, basically to go out and explore for natural resources in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana. And then, as I like to say, after doing that for about 10 years, in the late 80s, two major events really affected the industry. One was just the Tax Reform Act that changed the landscape for investor capital. And the other, of course, was just collapsing oil prices. And so I went home one day and just made a really tough, difficult decision, which was to collapse the business. We never had to file for bankruptcy because we were debt free. But I kind of went back to school, came out with a new perspective, thinking, okay, it's time to go to work, corporate America, and was really disillusioned. Didn't like that very much. And so the one day, just a couple of years ago, was basically watching TV, and Steve Harvey said something that really impacted me, and it was talking about kind of finding what he calls your something special. It's understanding what your primary hard skill is, what you're really great at, and then creating content around that and delivering it to the world where it helps change the lives of other people. And he said, man, if you can do that, it's a magical thing. And so today, basically recently knighted, which is definitely one of the highlights of my career. But today, what we really do is we teach people through universal key concepts that will work almost anywhere, how to attract, how to raise, and how to close capital from high net worth investors. And the reason that this has been so successful, Josh, is it's my belief that everybody has a desire to be doing something bigger in their life. We all have a desire to do something bigger, whether it's invest in real estate, whether it's start a business, whether it's just having more abundance, more money, more wealth. And when I continue having conversations with people and I ask them the next couple of questions, like, well, how long have you had this burning desire? Invariably, for a lot of people, it's like, oh my God, as long as I can remember, God, it's got to be at least 7 or 10 years. Well, wow, that long, like, what's been holding you back? And the funny thing is, I never get the answer, oh, I'm scared, or the limiting beliefs. The answer always comes down to, I just don't have the money. And what a sad thing that people have all these big ideas, dreams, desires, goals in life. And the one thing holding them back is a lack of capital. They just don't realize that all the money they need to pretty much do anything in life is out there, and it's called OPM, other people's money. And so, that's what we teach. And today we've got students literally all over the world, Australia, New Zealand, here, of course, in the US, where we're based, Canada, over in Africa, Finland, Puerto Rico. And it really, I think, just gets down to that one thing, man. Everybody has this desire to be doing so much more. And when they realize that they can attract that capital to them and then use that, it's like the key that unlocks the door to more potential in life.
Man, that's so cool. There's so many questions that came up in this, but in the fact of raising capital, right? If we asked 100 entrepreneurs, or potential entrepreneurs, or people in the corporate America, and we go, "What's holding you back from your dream?" Right? Definitely, one of the top answers will be money,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a family member just the other day, and they hate their job, absolutely hate their job, but the benefits are so good that they won't leave it. And I'm like, the benefits of throwing your life away for something, for a benefit that a corporation gives you. I'm like, man, to me, that is it's scary. And my fear is that one day I look back and I go, I should have. that's one of my greatest fears.
Yeah, the regret. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I
And
agree.
so you say, like these, one of the main reasons that's holding people back is lack of capital. Now, is that a scarcity mindset? Is there truly capital out there waiting for a good deal to be deployed? What are your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. That is totally number one, a scarcity mindset. It's number two, basically a false belief about yourself that, quote, you can't do this. I literally have taught hundreds of people all over the world how to attract and raise capital. And, the testimonials are coming in regularly. My quarter one, we have what we call a superstar every quarter of the year. My Q1 superstar, Nicholas, who's in Vegas, $6 million, in the first couple of months of the year after basically learning from me and understanding some of these key universal concepts. Dustin, basically, who came to my last boot camp, goes out 3 weeks later, sends me a message. Hey, I just got $102 million commitment from a family office for my solar business. So people are definitely having this success. But I think it comes down to exactly what you said, basically, Josh, and that is the scarcity mindset. They just don't think they can do it. But it's also, I think, overcoming that apprehension. A lot of people basically are raised thinking that it is not proper to go out and ask people for money. It's kind of like, borrowing money from a buddy of yours. Like, what does that say? It says, I'm fucking broke off my ass and I need some help. Well, when you approach investors, it's a completely different mindset. Most people that are affluent or that have any discretionary income, they are looking for places to put their money to work. They understand some of these key concepts about building and creating wealth, that your money is a tool. And so when you understand this concept that money is a tool and it should always be working for you, you're able to move forward through those apprehensions and that self-doubt and start understanding that it is okay to go out and actually ask people for money, because I've got this wonderful investment opportunity here that people need to understand and basically be able to evaluate and potentially invest in. Why? Because it's a good investment, and more importantly, that good investment will help other people make more money. It's all mindset.
Yeah. Let's do this. I grew up on a construction site swinging hammers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I remember in 1990-ish, I was 10 years old. My dad and I would wake up and we would pray in the morning, read the Bible. I just wanted to hang out with my dad. He was my hero, right?
Yeah.
And I remember he was in construction, and one day he cried. I've seen my dad, badass dude, two Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars, Vietnam, jumped out of planes, shot, bad guys. He cried. I've seen him cry maybe 2 times in my life.
Wow.
He cried, and it was about money,
Mm.
right? And I vowed to myself, I will fix my family's issues with money. Chased
Mm.
it my whole life.
Yeah.
All right. So that was one of the major pain points that my family had for decades,
Sure.
until we met some investors and then we started building some stuff.
Yeah.
So let me ask you some thoughts about money, the mindset about money and capital, and
Mhm.
let's debunk it. Let's unwind some of the things that I learned on an unhealthy side. Growing up in church, the money is the root of all evil.
Sure. Yeah.
Don't talk about money, right? Like it's not polite to talk about money. All these things. What are some of the things that you see that you have to help people like me unwind out of our brains, so actually have intelligent conversations with investors
Mhm.
looking to deploy capital?
Well, I mean, I think number one, you hit one of them, and that is basically people raise, quote, with that mentality that, money is the root of all evil. It's not. You can do so many wonderful, great things with money. You can become a philanthropist. You can basically give to your alma mater or give to something that you're passionate about, like a institution that's doing research for cancer, those types of things. But the other really is, I guess, maybe the jealousy, that a lot of people have. They look at somebody over here that's, living in a beautiful house, that's driving a nice car, and they're somewhat envious, where they don't realize that those same opportunities are available to them in life as well. It's just that I believe most people get to a certain level of comfort and then they acquiesce. They reach that cap, and you have to understand that you will only earn as much as you think you're personally capable of. You have to raise your standards about your beliefs and what can actually be done in life. And once you raise your standards and you start thinking bigger and you start backing that basically decision with some effort and some action, your life will definitely start to change. But I think what happens for so many people is that they are unwilling to take those first steps. And the unwillingness really stems from the fact that it does take work to raise money. I mean, let's face it, for those of us that are in the deal making space or the capital space, money just doesn't show up in a wheelbarrow at your front door. I mean, I wish it was that simple. You've got to put some effort and action behind this. You got to make the calls. You got to have the meetings. You got to invest some time to put together your pitch deck and have your offering memorandum and those things assembled. But once you have those tools, then you can actually start that forward motion. I like to say money follows motion. It's that activity that you're doing on a consistent, regular basis. And the beautiful thing about raising money is it does not have to be a full-time job. I tell my students, look, if you just devote 2 days a week, right, 2 to 3 hours to be making the calls, to be having the meetings, to be using our systems, you will have success ultimately raising capital. But if you're not willing to do the work and get in front of people, it ain't ever going to happen. And you're going to be sitting here, like we've just said earlier, 10 years from now with the regrets, saying, man, I had so much potential in my life. Like I had all these big, wonderful ideas, but I never took action. I never moved forward on any of them. And most of the time, it gets back to that one thing that we're discussing here. It's that lack of capital. It's the knowledge that you need the money, but you just don't have the desire or the willingness to go out and get it. And the other big mistake I see a lot of people make is they have this false sense that, oh, I'll just go borrow it from a bank. And so they go and they have a conversation maybe with the local banker and they get turned down for a loan. Why? Well, maybe they just don't have enough assets, or maybe they got marginal credit, or maybe they lack the experience. Well, that's the bank. Investors in OPM, and that's a whole different world. You don't need a track record. Look at all the people that have funded startups. Basically, it's just you just got to basically just create that mindset and that shift in your belief system.
Yeah. This is so awesome. Some other lies about money or some misconceptions about money that I would love to chat about, right? So, you know, um, don't talk about money. And I'd like to peel this away because my daughter, 9 years old, she loves making money. My kids love making money.
Love it. I love that, man. You got to teach them at an
Yeah.
early age. Same thing with my daughter as well, man. She
Yeah.
understands the value of a buck. She's willing to work. She's saving. And, it's awesome. And the funny thing is, this is something that my grandfather did when I was a little kid. And I'm definitely going to start doing it now that my daughter's old enough. He used to have what he called bank night. Whenever we went to visit my grandparents, what we basically would do is we'd bring our piggy bank. And so we'd all show up and he'd sit down at the kitchen table. He'd say, okay, it's bank night, right? And so we'd all get our piggy banks and he'd count up all of our pennies and our nickels and dimes. And he had his little ledger there and he'd say, okay, you got $19.82. And my sister over there, had whatever, and he'd write it down. And so we'd all go to bed and we'd all wake up excited. Ooh, it's bank night. Okay, what are we going to do? And so we say, okay, here's the interest that you earned in the bank. And so, of course, as young kids, we always got back more than we put in.
Hmm.
And it really started us at that very early age of understanding some of these principles of how banks work, how they pay interest, how your money can grow. And so, it's really just teaching kids at that young age. And I love the fact that, your kids love making money because most people basically want more, but they're tied to the belief that that more is going out and getting a better job that's going to pay them more. Or that belief is basically that I can't have that more because I'm capped where I am, and therefore I've given up and I've acquiesced, and I'm just of this mindset that that's all there is for me in life, and I can't get any more than this bullshit to that.
Yeah. Ah, it's so good. So, going back to the example, growing up on a construction site, we didn't have money. We saw people with money, but there was a big degree of separation. I would only see them maybe on church or every once in a while, and we see them drive away in the fancy cars, but I had no exposure. And you said that the belief systems are people are capped and trapped in their current belief systems. Do you believe that financial success, raising capital, doing, big things are primarily capped and trapped, I guess that was a cool way of saying it, by our belief systems?
Yeah, I mean, I think to a degree they are. because your belief systems largely dictate what you believe is possible or not possible. And so, I think that people have this desire, for example, to invest in real estate, but they've never done it before. So there's naturally that fear and that apprehension of, well, what do I even do to get started?
Hmm.
Well, a lot of people, of course, what they do is they go and they hire a coach. They find somebody that's at a point in life where they want to be, and they basically say, will you teach me? Will you show me what you did to become hugely successful? Now, a lot of times these coaches, these gurus charge money, and that's certainly fine. The reason that they do that is so that you hold yourself accountable and you show up and you take it somewhat seriously rather than thinking you're going to get all this coaching and this mentorship for free. Because we have found over time that people that basically have that expectation of getting something for free, they're just
Hmm.
not going to do the work.
Yeah.
But when you invest a little bit of money in yourself, it get that knowledge and to get that understanding, but then apply it, that's of course where the tremendous growth and that's where the transformation will come from. But I think that it's largely also getting around people that are either doing deals or that want to be doing deals because, psychologists have shown that you largely gravitate and move in the direction of the 5 to 7 people that you're spending most of your time with. And so if you start listening to this podcast and you start basically networking and basically, having conversations with people that are doing deals, you're going to start doing deals. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah.
You're either going to learn how to raise the capital, you're going to learn how to evaluate a deal, whether it's real estate, whether it's in some other industry. It doesn't really matter what it's in. I mean, I got people raising money for all kinds of amazing things: movies, e-commerce, real estate, obviously, many different types of businesses and industries, because the ability to raise and attract money is not just limited to one specific sector or industry. You can raise money for pretty much almost anything, once you understand some of these key principles. But I think largely it's the desire to just have a better life. It's kind of like Tony Robbins, right? If you've ever read his first book, he says, man, I was so low in my life, man. I was washing clothes in my damn bathtub and I was eating mac and cheese.
Hmm.
It's like I had nowhere to go but up. And a
Yeah.
lot of times you get to a point in life where you're like so low that like you just snap. It's like, man, something's got to change.
Something's
My
got to
life
change.
sucks. And when that happens and you make that commitment, it's like a New Year's resolution. Either that commitment sticks and you go long in the same direction, right? You create basically that desire where you're working at it with regularity rather than just quote getting started, getting into a little bit of mental block because you're having basically some frustrations when people are saying no. And so you start believing, well, it's next to impossible to do this. And then you just give up. The people that persevere, that have the grit, that have the tenacity, that really are so focused on where they're going, those are the ones I just love being around because they're going to continue to get up when they get knocked down. I mean, let's face it, we all know life ain't easy. I don't care how successful you are as an entrepreneur, you're going to get kicked in the balls. You're going to fall down. You're going to stumble. But it's the desire to keep moving forward to something bigger and something better that is waiting for you in the future. And that's where you basically got to keep your eye on, is you got to keep your eye on that target. And that's what's going to basically teach you how these skills that you need in order to be a deal maker, in order to raise the capital, in order to basically do bigger things.
Yeah. So I love this, man. You mentioned like if you want to go somewhere, right? You want to build businesses and raise a fund
Yeah.
and do big things. Go, find someone who's done it
Mm-hmm.
and with people who are doing it,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's simple.
Yeah. Um, that's like a team approach, right? Even though they might be doing their own thing.
Yeah.
When did you discover this, right? It's because CEO of oil company, built it up. The world changed a little bit. You went back to school, became a corporate guy,
Mhm.
and then you saw Steve Harvey, who inspired you. Do something that's uniquely you and big.
Yeah.
What did that look like for you? What was that change from corporate to cap raiser? What did that look like?
Well, I mean, in the corporate world, I was raising money for, large real estate sponsors, private equity firms.
Mhm.
Was basically the president of capital raising divisions, national sales director. And I was, highly compensated, nice mid six-figure income with a very nice lifestyle attached to it. But, inside of me, there was kind of this quote entrepreneurial bug. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. And here's the thing I think that I've learned. And this really, I won't say it came out when I was watching the Steve Harvey show, but it's definitely come out as I've been on stage talking alongside some of the biggest coaches and speakers in the world today. People like boxing legend Floyd Mayweather or, Kevin Harrington, the Brandon Dawsons of the world. Um, it's that most people are not doing something that they're passionate about.
Mhm.
They're not living in their purpose. And that's why today, if you look at the statistics, we have so much discontent in our lives. They say that 67% of the people that have a job already have one foot out the door looking for another one. Well, hell, what does that tell you about our work culture and about basically corporate America? If you're an employer, that's a pretty scary thing to think that basically 66 and a third percent of everybody that works for you is out looking for another job. And it's not that they're not making good money. It's just that they're discontent. They're
Yeah.
just not happy. They're not fulfilled. And so once you can find kind of inside you what that purpose is, or what that really, really good gift is that you can then go out and quote live in your zone, it really changes things for you because now you're showing up every day basically doing something you love, something that you're passionate about. For me, it was basically raising capital. That's something that I personally believe I can do better than most anybody I've ever met. I mean, $2 billion is a ton of money. And so that's what gives me this deep seated conviction inside of me to get up on stages, to get on shows like yours, but more importantly, to teach people all around the world how to do this because I've seen the impact it's made in my own personal life, given me the ability to invest in real estate, to rehab houses, to invest in small multifamily and create that passive income. And then when I start getting testimonials from students of mine, like, hey, man, thank you so much. I just closed on my first deal, or, hey, I've just raised my first few $1 million. I'm like, man, that person's life is changing.
Yeah.
They're going in the right direction. And so for me, inside, that's what really moves the needle for me. I mean, yeah, the money's great, but it's not the money. I'm way beyond that. It's impacting people, creating a legacy, writing the books, being on stage, taking pictures with people, signing autographs. Why? Because these people's lives are changing for the better once they're starting to learn this skill, once they're starting to learn how to raise the money, once they're learning how to do the deals. I mean, that's what it's all about, man. It's really just taking your whole life to a whole nother level.
Yeah. So I joined your boot camp and
Mhm.
your cap raising school, and I'm like, Brad, man, I got these big dreams and such, but my bank account's limited. But I
Mhm.
know that there's people out there, there's investors out there who want to put their money to work, and I've got the perfect thing for them, right?
Yeah.
And I'm driven to do that. It's a mission driven mission, whatever, right? And set the stage. I've got all the perfect motivations,
Mhm.
and I go, okay, teach me, mentor me, train me. I need to raise 100 million bucks.
Yeah.
How do we? What are some of the key? You said key principles, the key concepts about raising capital. What are they?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that's the one thing, number one, that sets me apart from quote, these other people out there that are doing this. Because let's face it, there's other people out there, I'm not going to mention names, but they have not raised $2 billion. They teach people primarily here in the United States. They don't have clients globally all over the world. And it's because their what I call methodology is not based on key universal principles. The biggest mistake that we typically see people make when they go out and they try to raise capital is they talk too prematurely about the deal or the investment or what it is they have to invest in. And one of the key concepts and principles of raising money is you need to understand people will only invest with you once there's enough trust for them to move forward in that relationship.
Hmm.
Well, trust takes time. You just don't meet somebody, shake their hand, sit down over a cup of coffee, and then leave that relationship where that person trusts you enough to write you a check for $50 or $100,000. So it takes time to build that. And so one of the key things we talk about is this concept called the trust sequence. Okay, the trust sequence are 6 things that need to take place sequentially, one after another, that I talk about, so that subconsciously you now have an understanding of the things you need to be doing to build that trust in another person.
Okay.
Another one of these key universal concepts that I talk about is called basically the 4-step blueprint. Think of capital raising as 4 steps. And it could be basically 4 phone calls, 4 meetings, 4 Zooms. The first 2 are all about the other person. You're getting them to talk about themselves. You're getting them to open up about what they like to invest in, what they've invested in before, where they've had prior investment success. You're really trying to uncover the temptation in their mind that's going to allow them to move forward with you as a potential capital partner. And then the third concept that I touch upon is something that's very important, and I call it the validation phrase. And what I tell people is you're largely just wasting your time talking about your deal until you ask this very important question to verify that the person you're having a conversation with basically trusts you enough to now move forward in this process with you. And then, of course, also, what you need to be focused on and how you need to be delivering your pitch. So all of these things are really important key concepts. And once you understand, that's where I've been making my mistake. That's where I've been stubbing my toe, because I've been doing this a while and I've really been floundering and I've been trying to deal with my lack of success. It's like bingo. I'm just like the mad scientist. I come in, I ask a bunch of questions like, tell me what you're doing, why you think it ain't working. And then once I really dissect what you're doing, almost 9 out of 10 times I can tell you exactly what you've been doing wrong and we can fix it. And usually that's where it is. It's you've been talking about the deal way too early. You haven't been validating that the person trusts you. And then more importantly, you're not coming to the meeting prepared. You don't have, quote, the professional appearance of really having your act together. You don't have a quality pitch deck, or you don't have a website, or you don't have, the collateral material that you need, so that when somebody says, Josh, man, it sounds like an exciting deal, do you have something you can send to me? What are you going to send them?
Yeah.
And so without those tools, you're naturally not going to have the success that somebody else would have that's prepared, that understands what they need, that has a little bit of coaching and mentoring to really now understand how this process works and how they need to be moving through that. But, capital raising is not really that difficult once you understand these concepts, once you set up what I call your foundation, because you need to have that foundation for success. Otherwise, you're just like a little hamster on a treadmill having unproductive conversations with people, and then those people fall through the cracks because you're not following up with them. Well, you need a follow-up system. Well,
Yeah.
what does that look like? And so understanding what you need to have as the building blocks for a successful capital raise, to start building, quote, a capital raising infrastructure, to start doing deals. We teach all of those things literally from A to Z, so that people basically can go out there and have success and start seeing results. But here's the other thing that I'll also share with you. It's been my experience just through observation, that people basically go out there, because I've had conversations with lots of other coaches, lots of other mentors, and they say, yeah, people definitely fall off the bus. They hire me and then they never do anything. Well, why is that? And it comes down to the principle that it takes work. Most people just don't want to work. And it's basically a sad thing, because you need to work in order to become wildly successful. If you want to create a business that's generating $1 million a year in revenue, it ain't easy.
No.
They say that, less than 1-2% of all of the small businesses that are started in America ever get to that revenue level of $1 million. Well, that's a big number. Now you're doing almost 100,000 a month in sales or whatever that is. Well, that takes work, and most people they're not willing to work, man. No, I'm just happy over here making my 60, 75,000 bucks a year. I got all my benefits covered. I got my health care, my 401k. Great. Why are you not hustling and busting your ass to make $250,000, $300,000 a year? Well, that takes a lot more work. Well, yeah, sure it does. But look at the lifestyle that you're going to be able to live. Look at the great trips you're going to be able to take. Look at how much better you're going to be able to do for your family. And so, the expression that I like to use is one that my good friend, Coach Michael Burt says. He said, man, everybody wants six pack. But when you go to the beach, how many people truly have a six pack? Very few.
Yeah.
Why? Because, man, it's a dedication to your fitness, to the nutrition, to working out. It's the same principle applied to life.
Yeah.
The difference between leading an ordinary life and leading one that's extraordinary is a little extra.
A little extra. Yeah. Man, this is so cool. The trust sequence, right? So you got key concepts, you got your trust sequence, you got your 4-step blueprint. Let's talk about side by side, right? Cap raiser A, cap raiser B, same exact deal, pitching to the same exact family office, the same amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be one thing that they say yes to that cap raiser A versus cap raiser B.
Yeah.
What are on the person, right? You mentioned trust, hard work, getting the, organizing the deal, follow up. Are there any other things that would be a red flag for the family office to say, I'm not investing in that guy or gal? What are some red flags?
There's a lot of red flags, and I call them stop signs. It's like every investor has reasons not to invest. I mean, it's like, these stop signs, and I call it the credibility issue. And I learned something from somebody that's become kind of a mentor and a good friend of mine, and that's Kevin Harrington, one of the original sharks on the hit TV show Shark Tank.
Yep.
And he said, look, a lot of people come onto the show. They're great people. Many of them are highly educated, PhDs, whatever, but they just don't get a deal. And it's not that they're a bad person. The biggest thing you need to understand about attracting and raising capital is you need to basically convince the investor or that family office that you can execute on whatever it is you're doing. I got this dream to do this. This is what we're going to do. But if you can't convince the person that's on the other side that you can do that, you're not going to get the money. So how do you do that? Well, number one is you got to be very confident. You got to go into every meeting with a degree of confidence. You just got to exude confidence and have confidence just oozing out of your pores. And I keep asking myself, how could this little 23-year-old kid that lacked a college education, that had never drilled an oil well, that absolutely knew nothing about running a multi-million-dollar company, go out there and convince people to write checks for $50,000 and $100,000 when I launched my oil company? Is because I was this cocky little confident son of a bitch that didn't know any better. Mm-hmm. And I just went into every meeting with that assumptive attitude that people were going to invest. And with that confidence and a little bit of cockiness, guess what? They did. But it also comes down to understanding that you've got to close. People understand sales, but what they don't understand is that when you're raising money from other people, you're still selling. What you're selling is you're selling the deal, you're selling your business. And at some point in that relationship, you physically have to ask them to invest. And, there's multiple ways that you can do that, but a lot of people basically show up, they have great conversations, but then they fail to ask for the actual order, and they don't have the same level of success. So it's number one, I think, confidence. Number two, I also think it's going into each and every meeting with the assumptive attitude that people are naturally going to invest, because as Zig Ziglar said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right 100% of the time, or whatever the mind can conceive and believe it will achieve. But if you go into each one of these meetings with a degree of confidence, and you have that confidence and it's just exuding from you, and you show the person that's investing, hey, it's me, and I've got this team of other professionals that I've surrounded myself with. I've got my attorney, Bob, over here. I've got my CPA, Stephen, over here. I've got two advisors that have worked in the industry that are on my board. That potential investor is going to see a little bit of depth in what it is you're doing. And there's going to be a much higher degree of them investing with you because now you're showing them it's not just me as a solopreneur.
Yeah.
It's not just me doing it all by myself. And that's one of the big mistakes that I think a lot of people make when they go out there is they try to convince people to invest money, but they're doing it basically as a solopreneur. And the person that is looking to invest is looking at you saying, man, I just don't see you being able to execute.
That's so awesome because for a long time, and this is a misconception that I had to overcome in my life
Mhm.
is let's just keep it in house. I could do
Yeah,
that work. I could do this, I that. One man band kind of thing.
right.
And it was such a struggle because cutting up the pie and giving equity, giving ownership, that was a challenge for me. But
Mhm.
as soon as I started doing that, I started to attract more investors, more opportunity, more deal flow. When it comes to attracting, let's talk about attracting versus chasing. There's a lot of cap raisers out there who are chasing, knocking on the door all day long, throwing deals down my throat, right? What's the difference between attracting and chasing?
You know, Chasing really comes across as desperate. You're
Hmm.
you're you're basically pursuing somebody. It's almost like a dog chasing a car. And the potential investor, the person that has the money, can sense that. They sense the desperation. They sense basically that persistence. And that's where the red flag, that's where that stop sign comes up that we just talked about. It's like, I don't know that I really want to invest with you because you're coming across as overly desperate. I'm looking to invest with people that are at a level of success. So it's a change in mindset where it's kind of like, man, I do this every day. Like, if you want to invest in this great, wonderful deal we have, great. If you don't, that's fine too. Some will, some won't. So what? Who's next in line? That's kind of the mindset you need to adopt. But, the other thing also that's very, very important is you need to create the activity
Hmm.
to start attracting capital to you. Number one, how do you do that? Well, you can leverage your social media. You can start doing things like webinars, hosting events, doing podcasts, creating videos, things of that nature to, as I like to say, become a person of interest. Once you come across basically to the world as a person of interest or somebody that others will follow, your ability to attract capital to you just comes naturally. And I always like to talk about somebody that I recently met a couple months ago. His name is Roger Wakefield. And this
Okay.
is just amazing to show you how this concept and this principle can be applied to the highest level. So imagine this guy, Roger, and he's got, big old mustache, just like basically Hulk Hogan.
Nice.
But he is today the most recognizable plumber on the planet. So what does a plumber make? A good one, maybe 120, 150,000 bucks a year. So this guy basically just starts using his camera, his iPhone, to start recording short little videos. Hey folks, it's Roger. Let me show you today how to fix your toilet when it's leaking. Hey folks, it's Roger. Let me show you how to install the new faucet on your kitchen sink. And he started basically building this YouTube following, and people started going to YouTube to watch his videos to start learning how to do stuff. Okay. Today, Roger Wakefield makes millions of dollars a year.
Yes.
Millions, because the power of creating this community and this following on social media. He's got large manufacturers that come to him and say, hey, man, we'd like to give you basically an endorsement deal so that in your videos you endorse our products. And he's got money coming in from everywhere. He is
Yeah.
the most recognized plumber on the planet today. And I guarantee if you go and you Google this guy, you'll probably recognize him because he's out there everywhere now. So imagine that you want to raise capital. You're in the multifamily space. What do? You start creating videos. Hey, folks, I'm over here today just doing a little walkthrough on a property. Let me show you some of the things I look for as it relates to deferred maintenance. And then you do another video a couple days later. You're going to start creating basically this following. And then once you start building that community, guess what? it becomes real easy then to market the opportunity to that community. And what you'll find is a lot of people will raise their hands and say, yeah, put me down for $50,000. Or what are the next steps in investing alongside you? That's how you attract capital.
Yeah.
And you become really a money magnet where people are reaching out to you. I have people calling me now basically that are like, hey, Brad, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. They told me that they have some money to invest, and I know that you do this. And so, I'm getting a lot of referrals, getting in front of people that naturally are investing in our deals. But it's just becoming what I call kind of that money magnet.
Yeah. No, I love this, man. It's so true that money and capital and things chase momentum, right? When
It's
you get traction, when you're moving forward, people see that. Um, what about in this process, right? You talk about events and speaking and community and following and becoming a person of interest. Where could that go bad? Like where can that actually work against you? What are some guide rails that we could do so as cap raisers to make sure that we are um, that we continue build trust and credibility? Where could this go wrong?
Yeah. I think it could go wrong, number one, if you have just bad intentions.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look at the Bernie Madoffs. And
Jeez.
I'm not saying that when Bernie started, he started day one, dollar one with the intention to defraud and rip people off. I'm not saying that Jordan Belfort did the same thing. I don't think you go into business saying, I'm going to screw everybody. I'm going to raise a shitload of money and I'm going to be a crook and a thief. I don't think that's what happens. I think what happens is people go into it with good intentions and they get too far over their end of the skis because they haven't set the business up properly. And they're like, there's a lot more to this to be compliant and to do this right than I thought. So let me try to cover up some of the mistakes we've made along the way. Because I don't think that people go into this basically with ill will or the intent to basically harm. That's just my personal belief. But I think that, when you look at some of the mistakes that can be made, number one is you have to take the responsibility and role of raising capital very seriously. You become a fiduciary. Well, what does that mean? It means that you should really look at other people's money as if it was your own, being basically a steward of capital. And I always tell students before you go out there and you raise dollar one, you need to set up your business. You need to get your LLCs. You need to get your bank accounts so you're not commingling funds.
Hmm.
You need to think about things like the investor reporting and what that's going to look like in your business, like a quarterly newsletter or some type of a webinar to keep people updated on what you're doing and what's happening, all of those types of things to provide the transparency, because those are the things that are going to keep you out of trouble.
Yep.
The other thing is having an understanding of the do's and the don'ts as it relates to raising money, hiring other people to work alongside you as capital raisers, recognizing that you can't pay them a commission, you can't do certain things. Because at the end of the day, the ability to raise capital and having the knowledge of knowing how to go out and do that, that is a beautiful thing. It's like having a superpower.
Hmm.
And once you have that skill and you have that knowledge where you realize, I know I can always go out into the world and raise that $1 million that I need to launch this business or to do this real estate deal or to quote, do whatever it is I want to do, your life becomes a whole lot easier because the stress of worrying about what the future looks like is largely lifted. It's like this huge burden is taken off your shoulders because now you realize that you have the power to go out basically and do almost anything that you want to do in life using other people's money rather than sitting there with the regret and basically this desire that's just unfulfilled because you lack the capital and you lack the know-how in going out and actually doing that. That's just really tough. I mean, I can't fathom what it's like to have this big goal, this big dream, this big desire in life, and just kind of let it fester and dwell inside you without ever taking action. I've always been a person of action. And I think that's one of the reasons, man, that we've just been successful is I commit to something first and I make the decision to do it. Sometimes it scares the living daylights out of me, but then usually the solution presents itself. And
Yeah.
then you realize it wasn't really as challenging or as difficult as you thought it was in the first place.
Some of the things that I've pulled from our conversation about, you know, raising capital is trust is vital,
Yeah.
right? It is so vital. And within trust, here are some of the key components of trust: transparency,
Mhm.
a team, right? Nobody wants to just invest in a solopreneur, and traction, momentum, things
Yeah.
moving forward. When
Right.
it comes to team, right, you have your own personal stack, right? You mentioned CPA, attorney, operations. You mentioned someone who could do, IR, keeping them updated with
Yeah.
newsletters and updates, right? um, Cap raisers and investors. Do
Mhm.
you look at that as a part of the team too when you're talking to the family office? Do you look at them as an extension of your team or as a potential partner? How do you view that relationship?
Um, yes, absolutely. That's a great question, because you have to realize that everybody that invests with you, whether it's just an entrepreneur like a doctor or a business owner, or maybe it is a family office, they're all connected to other people that are in their network. And I've come to understand that you're just one person away from changing your life forever, because you don't know who that family office might be connected to. You don't know who that other person might be connected to. And once you start raising money and you start performing and you start having success, hopefully those people will then introduce you to other people in their network if
Hmm.
you ask. And I always believe that you should be asking for referrals. But I think that they are an extension of you and your business. I leverage relationships. I become an expert at leveraging relationships. And so I would certainly have to say, Josh, 100%, they're an extension of your team.
I love it, man. So let's do this for fellow deal makers in the audience who are thinking about raising capital, or maybe they're in the drudge of it and they're not getting traction, and they want to go a little bit faster. They want to, eliminate some of the no's that are coming in, and maybe even raise some more. What's a good place for them to connect with you and do a deal?
So, the best way to reach out to us is just to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Shoot me a DM, shoot me a text or whatever. Our email is real simple. It's info at bradblazar.com. Just make sure when you're reaching out that you don't put any E's in my last name. It's all A's. So it's Brad at bradblazar.com, Blazar. Inquire about our boot camps. We do 8 boot camps a year. Our next boot camp is coming up in a couple weeks, June the 10th and 11th, here in Houston. An intensive 2 days. Most of the people that attend are 7, 8 figure entrepreneurs that really want to just accelerate their business. It's a great place to build your network, to be in a room with other people. Inquire about our coaching and mentorship. It's our flagship program, Capital School, and it's all around the world. So this will work anywhere on planet Earth. Doesn't really matter where you reside. That's already been largely proven with the success we've had in other countries. Or, if you're a real cheap master, just go to Amazon and buy my book for 25 bucks called Winning at the Capital Game. It'll give you some of these key fundamental concepts and key principles that I do talk about. And then maybe once you read that, inquire about some of these other things as well. But, we're out there, real easy to find. I'm not hiding under a rock. But just realize that we have all these tools that are designed basically to educate you, to give you the knowledge, to basically give you a deeper understanding of how to do this. And it's not just how to attract and raise capital. I also teach people how to put together your pitch deck, how to actually put together your offering memorandum. We give you the templates and the tools to actually do that. So it's really a very comprehensive training, everything from A to Z, literally from putting together your materials, launching a fund. We talk about all of that stuff.
Super cool. Super cool. And what we'll do is we'll include all those links in the show notes below. So as you guys are running around, driving a car or whatever, you can always go back to the show notes and click on those links and
Love it.
be directly connected with Brad and the books that he's writing and sharing with you guys. So, Brad, are there any questions that I should have asked you on this, in this conversation about raising capital that I completely screwed up and missed the point?
Yeah, one great thing that I'll share, and I learned this many years ago, actually early in my capital raising journey, is you have to basically raise the bar when you're talking to potential investors because you really never know how much money they have. And in your own mind, you may think that you've hit a home run if somebody writes you a check for 25 or $50,000. And so, most people that are raising money, if they have a fund or they're raising money from quote multiple people, they'll either have what we call units or shares or minimum investment amount or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And invariably, most people go out with the intent and the desire to basically get people to sign up for whatever that amount is. If it's, let's say, $50,000 a share or $50,000 a unit, you're kind of talking about a person investing at that level. Well, what if they could write you a check for 250,000? You see, if you're not talking about that, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And so when I get to a point in a relationship with somebody where I'm basically asking them to invest, I usually take that minimum amount, let's just say hypothetically it's 50, and I say, Josh, how much of this do you see yourself taking today? Would you like to take 50,000, 150,000, 200,000, or none? And they might say, well, tell me exactly what 150,000 in the deal looks like. And then I'll tell them, and I'll say, if you're comfortable with that amount, let's go ahead and get the paperwork and I'll show you how to fill that out so that we can get you onboarded. You see, I think a lot of people set the bar way too low when they're out there attracting capital and they're talking to people about money. So always ask for more because you can always settle for less. But if you ask for less, it's always a lot harder to get the more, right?
Interesting.
It's just like any other business. You can always basically downsell. It's just like, people basically in the automotive business. You're out here looking at a car, the guy realizes you can't afford it. So he puts you in a car that's a little bit less expensive and boom, you drive off the lot. But it's really tough if you've got that budget for him to sell you something that's obviously a little bit more expensive. So it's just that mentality of basically always asking for more so that you're not leaving potential money on the table. And that's just something that, you learn through the school of hard knocks, having done it for close to 35 years.
Yep. Yep. Super cool. That's a great point. So once again, fellow deal makers, as always, reach out to our guests. Say thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely.
Buy their books, join their programs, especially if what they're saying resonates with you. If you have a deal, working on a deal, looking for a deal, and you want to talk about it here on this podcast, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. Till then, talk to you all on the next episode. See you guys.